Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local community. Our one-on-one consulting services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, hosting virtual food and beverage events focusing on restaurants and retailers, is one of the SBDC's educational offerings. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording today's presentation and we'll post it on our website, virginiasbdc.org. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A window, or you can raise your hand, and at the end of the session, we'll unmute people and allow them to ask questions. Our presenter today is Chris Van Orden. He is an international trade specialist at the Virginia Small Business Development Center at George Mason University, supporting Virginia exports with a particular focus on food and the beverage industry. Previously, Chris served as manager of marketing and beer strategy at Alexandria's Port City Brewing Company, where he guided new product releases, developed operational processes, and provided strategic growth insight for one of Virginia's largest craft brewers. At the Virginia SBDC, he manages the Craft Beverage Assistance Program, which is designed to promote sustainable growth and resiliency among Virginia-based producers, from startup to established and expanding companies. And without further ado, here's Chris.
All right. Thank you very much, Tracy. I appreciate you leading us in and getting us started this morning. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this early on a Monday morning. Very excited to be here and talk to you about hosting virtual events. So while many of the details we're going to be discussing today are applicable to any small food and beverage business, this presentation is tailored to food and beverage retailers. So restaurants, coffee shops, wine shops, those types of businesses. So if you're a producer, let's say a brewery or something like that, you may want to consider checking out our taped webinar from November 5th, which covers a lot of the same material, but focused more on the production rather than the retail side. But there definitely will be a lot of overlap. So we're going to be covering a broad range of issues today that are important to consider when designing a virtual event. So everything from event structure to building an audience, your communication strategy, logistics, really the sort of conception up through execution. So there's going to be a lot of ground to cover here. It's not going to talk about every possible consideration, but it should give you a good sense of what you should be thinking about when designing online events. So without further ado, we can get ourselves started. So event structure. Virtual events can take many forms. So before you do anything else, you need to decide how your event is going to function. What exactly is your event? So first and foremost, the offering. What are you offering to attendees? So what are you selling? Are you providing instructions, real-time versus written in advance? Or are you providing expertise or insights? Are you giving them an opportunity to interact with somebody? Is it the access? It sometimes can seem like it's very clear what you're doing, but until you actually think through the step, you may not be really focused in on what you're offering through this particular event. Who is the target audience? So who you're trying to reach is going to help define what the best model is, what your pricing strategy is, how you market this event. Be aware that your target audience for these events is not going to be the exact same target audience for your typical experience. Certainly when your doors are open and people can walk in, but even just your modified retail options currently, online events are a different thing. You may want to focus on a subset of your existing audience or grow into a new area. What is included in the ticket price? So first and foremost, is the ticket itself free, or is there a cost associated with registering for this event? Are all of the ingredients included? And if so, how many? So realizing that, if you're a restaurant that's selling something, of course, you're going to be selling them the dishes. But if you're working with somebody and teaching them how to do something, do they need to bring anything to the table? Is there a product format specifically for the event, such as product bundles? So if you're doing a paired dinner, do the drinks come with it? Is there a specific bundle that you're setting only available to this audience, or is that available to everyone? Do people know what they have to buy? What, if anything, are the participants tasked with bringing themselves? You'd be amazed what people will show up. They are doing a wine tasting class and they don't realize they need to bring glasses, let's say. So making it very clear what is expected of them. Now, how should attendees prepare? Do they need to have a specific place, a setting that they need to be working in? Do they need to be in a kitchen? Can they do this in a living space? How are they going to be required to kind of set up their individual space? Do they need any specific materials to work? So going back to a wine class idea, do they need a corkscrew themselves? How much time do they need to allocate? This is very important. If setting the expectations, I'm going to hit this point many times as we go through this. People need to know what they're getting into. So if this is an hour-long course, make sure that you actually do about an hour's worth of work. It's okay if you run over, but you don't want people to feel shortchanged. You don't want people to budget an insufficient amount of time to actually get the full value out of your event. And then finally, what do you want to achieve through this event? Again, obviously the ultimate thing that you're hoping to do here is to bring more money into your business and make some sort of sale. But there are lots of valid goals or framing of those goals. So obviously attendees buying your products or paying for your expertise, like that's the most direct way that you could be doing this. But you may also want to promote brand loyalty or reach a new audience or reward your biggest fans. So if there are regulars, you want to give an added, incentive to them for, an appreciation. This is a totally valid thing that you might want to achieve with your event. So be aware of what you're hoping to do with this event, because that will shape decisions down the line. Now, successful formats. There are countless permutations that you can, see out in the wild when it comes to hosting an online event. These are just some of the most common and successful options for food and beverage retailers. These are the ones that are very tidy. People they will understand what you're trying to accomplish here, what they're getting into. If you're doing something innovative, you have to be that much clearer with what you're doing, because people don't have a track record or a frame of reference for it. But these are 6 very common ones. So first and foremost, guided tasting. This is maybe the most evident for food and beverage businesses. You would have your attendees show up and taste through your offerings with them in real time. So ideally, you'd have a compelling theme for this. So for instance, if you're a coffee shop, a crash course in coffee roasting techniques, or if you're a wine store, we're going to talk about the wines from Alto a DJ today. Whatever it is, something that's very easily understandable, something that can appear as a one-line synopsis on your website when you're promoting this event. Having some sort of theme is really helpful for guided tastings, but it doesn't have to be exactly that. However, it is important that you have somebody on your team or somebody brought in for this event who is knowledgeable, who can speak to whatever the tasting is and can convey more details than are available online. There's nothing less interesting than going into an event and having somebody say, here's this product, here's what the description on the side of the product is on the label. All right, we're on to the next one. I can do that on my own. I don't want to waste an hour going through hearing somebody read a 2-paragraph marketing description of the product. Somebody who's got some insights to share. That's really important with this guided tasting. Hands-on tutorial. So in this instance, you would be showing your audience how to make something, such as a dish, a cup of coffee, cocktail, whatever it is. This format may not work for all instances. If you're a restaurant, you may want to teach them how to do one thing, but you're not going to teach them how to make it the entire meal. You're adding that value and you're bringing your expertise to that. But there are times where if you're a coffee shop, people are still going to visit you as a coffee shop. I mean, if you sell coffee beans already, they're bringing them home, making them. But if you can teach them how to make a better cup of coffee, they'll appreciate the expertise that they learned from you, and they're still going to come visit you. There's, this is not when somebody learns how to cook something, they're never going to order it out again. So walking through the process with them in this tutorial, giving them an insight into the value that you add, and it's going to help them appreciate the contribution. So a lot of times when you see these tutorials in the food and beverage space, people will say, whoa, this is way harder than I thought it is to make this particular dish or to make a proper cup of coffee. They will appreciate your expertise that you've spent years developing. Expert Q&A. So some of your most dedicated customers would love the chance to pick the brains of the people behind their favorite food and beverage experiences. So do you have someone on your team, a head chef, a sommelier, or a partner? You can bring in a partner to do this, a brewer or a coffee roaster who can talk through the process in an engaging way. It's having both the expertise and a they don't have to be extroverted personality, but engaging, comfortable working in an online format. If you have somebody who has both sides, the expertise and the comfort speaking about that expertise, use them. It's a really great tool. People who are your biggest fans, I'm sure you already have a sense of this, who likes to just stand around and shoot the breeze with your barista, whoever that is. Those people are going to be drawn to these Q&A type events. Pairing and partnerships. So you likely have trusted partners whose brand and products you're happy to associate yours with. Again, if you're a coffee shop, you don't do any roasting yourself, the roasters that you tend to work with. You can grow your audience both for this event and long-term through your combined draw. So beer and chocolate, wine and cheese, all of these kind of natural affinities between products. You can include the production partners to help you to get more products into customers' hands. So thinking about paired dinner bundles. So if you have a paired dinner that you would normally do in-house, you can find a way to do that now, and especially, being aware of what the regulations are, but knowing that a lot of the regulations surrounding to-go alcohol sales, for instance, have been relaxed. That presents an opportunity to do a take-home paired dinner menu. And you can have an online component so people are still getting a little bit of that service experience. Remember, as you're doing all of these things, your suppliers are looking for opportunities too. They are also in the same boat, trying to find a way to reach an audience, connect, get more people to try out their products. So they're looking for events too. So you can bring both of your resources together, grow your audience by sharing your respective draws with one another. Seasonal programming. So right now, this is probably top of mind for everyone listening. Capitalizing on existing occasions, especially when people's choices are limited as they are now, can be a big draw. So think, of course, Thanksgiving meals. I'm sure a lot of the restaurants that are on this webinar already are thinking about this, about, hey, how do we do a packaged Thanksgiving meal that might be scaled down? It might not make sense for people who are not having a big family meal to still get all of that Thanksgiving experience with all of the 20 dishes, but scaled appropriately. Well, this is a really good opportunity, and you can make it social through an online format. Holiday cookies, holiday preparation, all of these types of things, people are feeling shut in, literally, that they are not able to experience a lot of these seasonal events in the same way that they used to. So doing things virtually enables them to still add a social component to that. Converted mainstays. So by this, I mean, if you have already have a robust events program of some sort, you can consider ways that you can bring those events online and retain a captive audience that you have that's already dedicated to attending those events, or grow your audience by adding additional programming. So if there's any social programming or volunteering that a lot of you do, if there's, let's say, if you're a restaurant and you have Sunday dinners where you have a special format that you do that people tend to show up to every week, or if you're a wine shop and you do in-person wine classes that people might have a subscription to, taking that and bringing it online is going to bring over a natural audience and help you to grow the programming when it goes back to in-house, whenever that may be. People who might learn about it online may become customers in person down the line. So all of this is to say, people are looking for outlets right now. Give them easy options, easy ways to interact with things, interact with you and the products and things that you're selling. They're going to just be hungry for those opportunities. So try things out. Excuse me one moment. So once you have settled on what your format's going to be, building an audience. So attracting customers to join a virtual event is a different process than doing something in person. You need to adjust your approach, realizing that what the decision-making process for coming into a shop or a restaurant is not necessarily going to be the same one for attending an online event. So your audience attraction needs to be tailored to fit that different decision-making process. First and foremost, draw on your existing customer base. You all know who your loyal customers are. Go out to those closest followers first, whether it's through your mailing list. If you don't have a mailing list, now is a great time to be thinking about one. People are living their lives on their computer largely. If they're stuck at home, they're going to be excited to see mail with some sort of programming coming through the door, coming into their inbox. Go out to your social media followers. If you have any sort of membership club or anything where people are regularly interacting with you, go out to them. If you have a way to just go to regulars. Also promote through your other sales channels. So if you have takeout options, let's say, or if you're doing some sort of delivery, wine deliveries, just make a little index card size advertisement for the classes that you have coming up. Slip it in there when people get that box or bag delivered to them. Those people are already interested in you. They're the best bet. They're the most likely to follow for these online events because they are already on board with you conceptually. That said, this is also a good opportunity to reach out to new fans. This should be a strategy for you to get those new audiences on board with you and your company. People are adjusting their behavior, just the way that they're interacting on every front. So they're interested in exploring new options. They might be driving further to try restaurants or stores. They're looking for something exciting, some sort of novelty, since so much novelty has been sapped out of a lot of aspects of their lives. So this is an opportunity to give people a new and exciting experience. So if you get somebody on board with you, you give them a really good experience, that person may be in it for the long haul because they know that you're a place to turn when it comes to interesting programming, keeping things lively for them. And once you get them through the door that first time, hopefully you'll be able to have strategies to retain them. Leveraging partnerships. So I mentioned this a little bit before already, but whether or not they're involved in the event, your industry connections can help to promote this event. So suppliers may be willing to support an event or promote an event if you highlight their products. Again, if you are doing a paired beer dinner, let's say, doesn't even have to be entirely one brewery's product, but if it is, they're going to bring their own audience to the equation, as will you. Same goes as in-house, but they may have entirely different strategies. They may have a much bigger online reach than you do. So if you're just getting started on this front, but there's a brewery that you tend to like to work with, or a winery or something to that effect, they may have a listserv of 10,000 people. Now, not all of them are necessarily going to be within reach of your restaurant, but even if 2,000 are, and you have a 5% yield rate of people who might actually follow up on this event, that's 100 people. That's a pretty good draw just by partnering up with somebody. So leverage those partnerships that you've developed in real life and bring them online. Being clear with details and expectations. This is something, again, I'm going to hammer home over and over again. Avoid rolling out half-cooked ideas. This is one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to starting up virtual food and beverage events programs. People get excited. They launch something, they announce something before they've really figured out what that thing is. Customers are more likely to commit when they know what they're getting. They're going to be happier with the experience if they know what this event that they've signed up for actually is. So specify the details that you're gonna, that everyone needs to know, how they buy the product, how they actually register, what the run of show is going to be. Specify all that up front and make sure you've actually thought through all of those details. And even be clear on the plan for communication. Say, hey, you'll be receiving the link for the event 24 hours in advance so that you head off questions as you go down the line. Overall, this whole point is just making it easy for people to sign up, easy for people to have a good time. They're not questioning, you're not wasting your time answering 1,000 emails, asking questions that you probably should have avoided by making it clear up front. So communicate. That's a big point, and I'll probably mention it again. Tailoring your outreach for online setting. So this can go more than one way. So first, you might want to use the scalability of online events to broaden your audience. By this, I mean online, right? You may only have a certain capacity. There's only so many people who walk by your store or restaurant or are able to come in on a given night. There's a natural ceiling there. Once you host an event online, you can theoretically have 100 people watching a webinar. So if you're teaching a class on how to do a proper pour over for coffee, you could have 100 people on board following along. So this is an opportunity to scale an event that would have a natural ceiling in-house. Some in-person regulars won't follow you online, but if this gets connected to the right networks, it gets promoted the right way, it could really be an opportunity to bring in new customers, to do something and reach a lot of people all at once. On the other hand, and this is something I think a lot of people forget about the online format, you're having a face-to-face conversation, an hour-long sustained communication with your customers. And that's something that you may not have the opportunity to do when you're in your real setting, whether you're a restaurant or shop. You're busy, there's phone calls, there's people walking in and out of the door. This is both you and the attendees have set aside an hour to talk about one specific thing. That can be pretty intimate, especially when people don't have a lot of opportunities for face-to-face interaction. So you're watching my face right now, presumably, and I'm sorry that you have to, but so you're watching me and I'm speaking to you for an uninterrupted hour. That's unique. So using these online events for an intimate setting, a really deep connection rather than a broad, casting a wide net, this could be a way to develop deep bonds with a small number of customers. So this would be a good way to frame the question and answer, those Q&A sessions, where if you have an expert on staff or that you bring in, 15 people who get to sit around, listen to that person, ask questions, really get to know what drives them, what their processes are, that's going to make those people very committed customers down the line. So be aware that you have two ways to do this, but make sure that you're tailoring your outreach and the event structure based on what you're trying to achieve with the sort of broad versus deep connections. And then finally, investing in the process. So as with everything that you do, you have to determine upfront what resources you're willing to mobilize to support this event. Now, whether that might be effort, so things like earned media, social media, just the time that you and your staff are working to promote this event and organize it, or actual hard costs such as advertising, so mobile targeting, on online ads, third-party advertising that might be out there, like marketers or influencers, whatever you might want to do on that front. Whatever resources you're mobilizing for this event, make sure that you're allocating them towards building an audience, and that the amount of investment matches or fits with what your goals are, what the scale is. You want to make sure that you're putting enough in to actually make this a success, but also making sure that it matches what you actually stand to gain from this event. So managing communications, I said I was going to talk about this a lot. Communicating is vital for this. So since this event is going to be hosted online, there are more details to track than a typical in-person event where people just need to show up on time. I know that's not always easy. There's always going to be, a no call, no show if you're a restaurant, whatever. But it's fewer steps in the minds of the attendees for an in-person event versus something like this where there's, registration, payment, attending online, technology, all of those things. So being clear and communicative upfront is vital. So marketing and outreach, this is before you've gotten anybody signed up. You should have by now settled on a compelling format. So you have to really be super clear on what people can expect from this event. Exactly, things that we've spoken about already. What's the runtime? What do people need to bring to it? All of those things need to be in the marketing materials, not necessarily, in the tweet that you send out, but if there's a link to that tweet or from that tweet out to something else, all of those details need to be in one handy place, and they need to be consistent across all communications. To make life simpler, you can consider creating a shortened URL, bit.ly being a very common provider in this space, to make it easy to find that registration page that everything, all of your communications steer towards, that contains all of that relevant information. Another thing that in this early outreach that you need to make sure is included is space limited. If there is a cap to participation, make it very clear what that cap is, where things stand, and when you do reach or exceed capacity, that every place that you've promoted this event gets updated all at once, so that people don't continue to try and register and get disappointed. I've definitely seen it where an event reaches capacity, people get frustrated because some third-party site that you had put up a listing on does not say the event is full, and they say, oh, well, I'm never going to attend another one of your events. And granted, those are not the most enjoyable customers to work with sometimes, but that's a lot of time out of your day having to go chase that down, as opposed to just being very clear, hey, we've hit our capacity, we have maybe room for 2 more. Once those spots are full, we close the event, and everywhere that we promoted this says event is now full, look forward to our next event. Now, when it comes to the registration process itself, there's a lot of communication that needs to happen then. So when people sign up, you should have a standard email ready to confirm that their enrollment. People get very nervous if they don't see an email come in say, yes, you have registered quickly. So ideally, this would be sent automatically. If you don't have a process to do that automatically, if there's the registration process itself is multi-step, at least it should be done every day manually. People do not want to wait 3-4 days to make sure that the registration went through, especially if they've paid. At that point, you should convey how participants will join the event, whether you have the link for your online presentation then, or say that link will come later. You have to make it clear how they're going to procure the materials for the event. So if they're buying wines from you, is it pick up on site? Is it going to be shipped? Or is there a third-party site that they could go through, or do they have to go to this other place to buy something? So for instance, if you're teaching a class on how to make your famous dessert at your restaurant, they may not be buying the flour from you. You may say, hey, you're going to get, we're going to make a particular cake together. You're going to get the cake, buy it from us, but then you can follow along and try to make it. You're not going to be buying your flour and sugar from us, whatever that is. But make it very clear. However, attendees do get their materials, it should be an extension of the capabilities that you developed over the 8 months. It can be tempting to go to virtual events or to host a virtual event and try something entirely new. I find that it is usually most successful when a virtual event is just an extension of what the restaurant is doing already. Adding lots of new steps just means that there's additional complexity. You may not be comfortable with suddenly hosting an online event, handling an online registration process, beginning shipping of your products to new territories. All of that can be difficult. Doing multiple things at once, multiple new things at once, can get you into trouble. So pre-event, send a reminder email a day before the event with the login instructions and a link, either unique to the user or shared only within the participant group. Very, very important. Even if you've sent that beforehand, upon registration, having that reminder, tomorrow at this time, here's how you log in. Here's what you need to have ready. If there's any needed updates, so let's say this is going to go, it was supposed to be an hour, it's going to be an hour and a half, or we're going to be changing up this one wine that we're going to be speaking about, whatever that is. Ideally, the email that you have in there is conveying necessary information, but it's also getting people excited. Excited enough that if you do have additional room, that they might share it with a few more friends and get a couple more registrations at the last minute. I'm sure some of you are very busy and you didn't know if you're going to have time to join us this morning. You might have signed up at the last minute. That's the thing that happens all the time online. So be aware of that this is something you should encourage through some of your communications. After the event, You should be sharing any follow-up information that people need. So if you said that you were going to give people recipes or details on the products that you served, this is the time to communicate it. If there are discount codes for buying products online or for future events, this is the time to do it. Same goes for action items. So by this we mean, is there a next event in the series that people should be signing up for? Absolutely promote it here. These are people who have already bought into the concept of you teaching this online event. If you have a new menu that you're going to be debuting next month, this is a good time to do it because, again, these people are going to be excited about joining you for the next thing after your successful event. All right. Now, the registration process itself. So how you have designed your event is going to determine how you manage enrollment. So as I mentioned earlier, if the event is free versus paid, and it is totally valid to have a free event. So if you're a wine shop, the registration for the event may be free if you buy one of the wines being tasted. That's fine. In some ways that makes things easier, but that's going to really steer the registration process. Again, if there's a cap to attendance, that's has to be built into the registration process. If you're doing an event with alcohol, if ID is required, ID, you may have to check IDs in some way. Make sure that's built into the process. You don't want to get in any troubles there. And this is something I should say, a blanket statement now. If your event involves alcohol sales, make sure that whatever your processes are for registering, for selling the alcohol, for working with people, that you're in compliance. You do not want to bump into any regulatory hurdles or headaches here because you did not check all the boxes you need to as a retailer of alcohol. And again, any other details that you have when it comes to the format, inclusion of materials, all the things that we covered, that should all has to be baked into the registration process. And knowing that if you're doing more than one type of event, your registration process may work slightly differently each time. As long as it's clear and as long as you understand what the different elements are, that's totally fine. There's lots of ways to do this now, but you can't just say, hey, I have a process and I'm going to use that for everything. Make sure that it fits what you're trying to do in your class. Easy to use interface. So there are some event hosting platforms that have registration functionality. It's up to you if you would like to run your registration process through the platform or to create your own. So for instance, if you want to you might want to make people register directly with you. If you want to include in that getting them signed onto your listserv, if you have to check IDs, or if there's a payment component that the platform itself does not have, there may be, you sign up here and then the link for the event, the registration on the actual hosting platform may be separate. Make sure that whatever your process is, that it's thought through, and then you have somebody dedicated to handling this process. There will be questions that arise both internally and from potential attendees. There needs to be somebody on your team who is assigned to this. There's nothing more frustrating than signing up for an event. You have a question before you want to buy, or let's say, especially if you have already purchased a ticket, say, hey, how is this going to work? You send an email to the info@whateverrestaurant.com, and it's just sitting in an inbox that nobody's reading. There should be somebody assigned to that so that they're responding quickly. Again, communication, super vital when it comes to these online events. The encouraging attendance. So in order to avoid the online version of the no call, no show, you can consider building some commitment devices into the registration process. So the most common one here, and I'm sure some of you have already encountered this if you're a restaurant, let's say, that has Valentine's Day bookings, right? Everyone wants to sign up. And if one person doesn't show up, you don't have an easy way to backfill them. So the easiest way to do this would be for there to be a fee associated with it, whether it's the cost of the class, and all the materials, or just a small fee for the registration itself. Even if it's nominal, if it's a $2 registration, people's mindsets change. So they may be more likely to attend that way. You can also include in the registration process, if you'd like, an option to cancel up to 48 hours out. So if you have, costs associated with each, registration of some sort that you have to bear, knowing that these 48 hours out, okay, I have 20 people coming instead of 24 people coming, I don't need to make those extra meals. That's important to know. Giving people an option out and also making it far enough out for that it works for you means that after that it is unacceptable. There's sort of an implicitly saying you're fine up to now. After that, that is not acceptable. If you're also, you can also get people to attend at a higher rate if there are event-specific offerings. So if this is the only chance to get, these wines bundled together at this price or to try out this dish, you may see a higher rate of attendance among registrants. Finally, registering versus paying. Again, this is something I've spoken about a little bit already. Depending on your format, registration and payment may be two separate processes, or they may be one process. If the event is open, which is to say you just sign up, there's no cost associated with it, there's no cap, you just register for that link. And the way that you earn revenue is through the associated sales. So again, if you're a coffee shop and you're saying, I can have 2,000 people watch me show how to make a pour over, then you might say, all right, just sign up through the registration portal involved with the platform that you're using. That's fine. It's a one-step process. There may be some communication tools built into that platform. That's fine. But if you want people, if people are paying to tune in, or participation includes the purchase of ingredients and things like that, or your products, make sure that whatever the registration process that you have captures that payment, and then it's clear what that next registration for the platform for attending actually is. So technology. We've spoken a little bit about the platform already. There are lots and lots of options out there. They have proliferated. People are more comfortable than ever doing events online. You are attending one right now. So there are lots of options for hosting webinars. Make sure you find the right fit for you. There's no single right answer here, but be aware that there's different functionality from one platform to another. So look into what platforms can do themselves. If there are participant limits, that does come up. Same goes for time limits for the free version of a lot of these services. Sometimes you'll want to have special features, such as breakout rooms, where you'd say, hey, everyone who's attending today, we're going to split the group in half. Half of you are going to talk to our sommelier, half of you are going to talk to our chef. Then we swap. Not every platform can do that, but if that's really important for your event, make sure that your platform can do that. And make sure that whatever you're using, there is a web-based version. People will be frustrated if they sign up for an event and then find out that they have to download software. It adds a lot of complexity. If people are using a Mac and they can't find the version to, that's a headache that you don't need. Just make sure that whatever platform you're going to use is easy and does what you need it to do. Right now we're using Zoom. This is clearly one of the most popular services out there. The article that I cite here, the New York Times article, is just a rundown of 4 or 5 of the most popular services and sort of what they do. Again, try things out, see what's out there, see what other people are using. Chances are you'll see the same names come up over and over again, and then just understand what each of them can do. So the next thing is do a test run. This is before the event. So run a trial with your computer, camera, and mic to make sure that you're comfortable with the interface. So right now I'm using the camera and mic on my computer because I know that they work fairly well. I've certainly spoken enough over this thing now, but I have a backup option here. These headphones have a built-in mic, so I can hear, and you can hear me clearly if, for instance, there's ambient noise that would start intruding on things. And if you find that your quality isn't high enough on your camera, on your mic, whatever it is, there are pretty cheap options that are out there. It does not need to be a professional rig or anything like that. This can be very comfortable, low key. You don't need to invest thousands of dollars to do this. But it has to look halfway decent. People need to hear you. They need to be able to see you if they're going to find this engaging. Same thing goes with the lighting. So the lighting in here, I'm in my home. There's not, I don't have a fancy rig. but I have found a system that works for me. So I have some overhead lighting, which is not always the best because it casts shadows on your face, but I'll show you. I have a big light that I put back behind, so it has some light coming on my face, and I'll show you what it looks like. So that is the difference when you turn off that light and everything is just overhead, everything gets a little more washed out. You see more shadows. So I don't need you to see me like that, but that is, it can be as simple as just bringing a lamp over, putting it on your face. It doesn't need to be anything fancy or expensive. Another important thing when you're doing your test run, and this is something that I think that people might forget, do so at the same time of day and place as the event, because the noise and light can vary. So for instance, I know that there's a lot of windows behind me. I have to put the shades up, but if it's in the evening, that's going to be very different. So I have to make sure that my lighting and everything is set up for the proper setting. Same goes for the noise, that, hey, if there's a certain time of day where I know the mailman's going to come and my dog, who is off camera, decides to bark, I need to know that that's going to come. And that might be fine. I think people like the authenticity of actually having a real conversation with somebody. It's not something flashy. You are a small business that they are having a personal connection with. That can be seen as authentic, but you have to be aware if that's coming, if you want it to be a part of your event or not. Another thing to consider on the sort of technology and logistics side, there should be 2 people running every event. You'll notice Tracy set everything up today. She is an absolute wizard when it comes to organizing all of these events. She did the intro to this event. She gave you a run of show up top. So I am here. The only thing I need to worry about today is talking about the content, sharing the sort of details and speaking with you. Tracy handles everything else, which is very helpful for me. If it was just me, this would not be as smooth. It would be even, bumpier than whatever it already is. So have that other person besides the presenter on hand to manage questions. Potentially, if the person who's speaking might be doing trials of things, showing people how to do things, they don't want to necessarily advance slides if there are slides. That is something that your other person can be doing. They may handle admittance into the room if that's the way that you set up things. You have to make sure that there's somebody on hand to do those things for you. But both people should have controls as co-hosts. This is just something that you get to learn over time. Both Tracy and I are able to do different things. So I could share my slides. She can, see if somebody's waiting to come into the room, whatever that is. So speaking of allowing people into the room, arrange the settings in advance. So you'll see whatever service you use, there's settings that you can establish when you publish an event that says, okay, all of the participants come in on mute, which is probably very important. And even with a small group, you want whoever's the presenter, you should be the one who's speaking. There should be options for how your screen layout appears for both you and your participants. Make sure that that makes sense for whatever the event is. Make sure that however you have communicated your link before or during the registration process, if there's a waiting room, let's say, whatever the link you set up that will get people into the room in a certain way. So just be aware of what the settings are. And this is why it's important to do those trial runs. So you know how things are going to work and you're not figuring it out on the fly, because that eats up time, just doesn't look very professional. Ideally, I mean, all of you are familiar with the sort of service component of this. You want things to look smooth and seamless, in the front of house. You can work it out beforehand and be comfortable with it. Now, day of details. So there don't need to be tons of technical elements to this, but you want to make sure that your space is quiet, it is well lit, that you have a power source handy. I've been on webinars where people's computers have died, and then their other person scrambles and says, oh, I don't know what happened to so-and-so, and they're texting and calling people. If you have a plug, it just heads it off. You have to make sure that there's decent camera angles. Because this is a very informal thing and I'm speaking to you and about your businesses rather than with a sort of broader public, it's fine if I'm in my home, but if I was doing presenting at a conference, say, I may choose to have a more neutral background or put up a banner for the Virginia SBDC behind me, whatever the case may be, make sure it fits the context. You want to make sure that you have the right angles. So this is a sort of done in a close-up, everything sort of from here up because I'm just speaking to you, that's totally fine. If you're actually producing something, you know, if you're teaching people how to do something, you want to make sure the shot can capture everything. Think very basic cinematography terms here, the wide shot versus the close-up, you know. You want to make sure that you have some off-screen notes. So when it comes to the setting, again, think of the frame of your camera. You know, you can see what you look like to other people depending on how you have your display. On top of that, you want to make sure that you have some things just off screen. So I showed you, I have my backup audio options. I also have an iPad just off screen that contains the notes for my class. If I forget a point, I can go refer to that. Also, if my computer were to die, I could very quickly load it up over here to try and make it seamless. You want to have those backups just out of frame. You want to make sure that you log in early. So every webinar we go in 10 to 15 minutes early, troubleshoot any issues, make sure that everything is loading up properly. Ideally, before you start your event, you've rebooted your computer. It has definitely happened where people get up and 5 minutes before the event, they say, oh no, everything's freezing and everybody's scrambling. It's just a headache. I mean, you all have enough to think about just running your business. You don't need to think about, is my computer going to do something wonky? Start it fresh. Don't open, you know, close out all other programs. Make it very, make sure that everything's going to work properly. And that's just being ready a few minutes early. Looking for emails and chats during the event. So the non-presenter should be actively checking these things as they go through. You know, you're going to see emails coming in saying, hey, I can't find my link. I can't figure out why my audio isn't working, or I'm not seeing anybody. Can you see me? That kind of thing. Have somebody whose just job it is to do that. Half the time it's just somebody like, oh, I can't see. It's like, well, you didn't turn your camera on. Oh, okay, well, there you go. That's it. And that's the solution. Sometimes it's a little more involved, but ideally the presenter is not spending a lot of brain space focusing on that. And then at the beginning, you want to have the run of show, walk through the steps of what you're going to be talking about here. So, you know, again, you've already communicated most of these details to everybody in advance of the event, but you're going to go over at the top the way that Tracy did today, saying, hey, here's who we are. Here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be speaking about this. You know, you might want to say, we're going to be talking about hosting online events. I'll be speaking for about 45 to 50 minutes with a 10 to 15 minute moderated Q&A, like Tracy said. So you've got a way to make it clear once again at the top, set those expectations. Here's what we're going to do. So again, none of this is really rocket science. It's just getting into the habit, saying, hey, beginning of this, I'm not going to launch right in. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to tell you what we're doing, and then we're underway. So to that effect, I'll show you a little bit. I'll talk about, kind of demo a couple of the things that I was talking about here. So I already showed you the lighting, showed you some of the off-screen things, then talking about the framing that we have here. And I'm going to quickly stop share, and I'll show you if I was going to show people how to make a pour over here. So you can see I set things further back. I am now here. So you can have things off screen, and you want to make it so that now all of a sudden there's more room here. It's not just tighten on me where I can, you know, do this. I can bring my scale over, and you can have things just off screen that you can bring into shot. And you've got a little bit more room to work here so that as people are watching you as you do something, rather than presenting slides, if I was going to be doing a demo or a tutorial here, I would be front and center. You'd be watching me the whole time rather than the slides. So you want to make sure that the frame captures everything that you're going to be doing in that the lighting is appropriate for it. I mean, you can see there's a little bit of light behind me, but it is, you know, 9:50 a.m. on a Monday. So that is natural. So you can just see how the change from right up here, I wouldn't be able to show you very much if I was going to be doing a tutorial in this shot. Now, I'm going to go back to my screen share here. All right. Now, finally, we are going to say, talk about the sort of next steps. Once you've had this event, once it's been a resounding success, what do you do next? So we talked about the communication already. An email should go out shortly after the event saying, first of all, thank you for joining us. Here are the things that we said we would get you after this event. So again, recipes, discount codes, follow-up points, any of that. And the action items should be in there. What's the next opportunity for them to engage with you? That's the best time that you're going to have when it comes to keeping that person interested, keeping them on board for the next thing, is right after that class. It's fresh in their mind how much fun they had. So reach out to them with that opportunity in this next email, and include in there a 5-question survey. It does not need to be anything overly robust, and I know that you're going to see only a small percentage of people actually filling this out, but it's amazing how forthcoming people will be. Maybe not, during the class, but afterwards they're going to say, hey, I really liked it, except they went way too quickly on the preparation of this step. Great, good to know. And that's going to make it better next time. You need to have a mechanism to get that feedback the way that you do for most of the other things, most of the other ways that you interact with your customers. You should have a way to review those metrics. So compare your registration numbers up front against the actual attendance. Ideally, it's a pretty high count, but depending on the way the event is set, you may only have 50% of the people show up, and that's fine. Just you have to know that for your own internal planning purposes. Compare the attendance at the beginning and the end. If you have somebody looking to see when people drop off, if that happens, it's important to know if you lose people somehow. Also, if you can, try to, depending on the way this is structured, it may not be a direct correlation, but you might want to look at the revenue that you generated through this event compared to the expenses that you had. So the promotional elements, all of the costs associated with this, just make sure that this is doing what you need it to for your business. If you're making $0 and you spent, 20 hours organizing it, that's fine if you reached a new audience, but if it doesn't accomplish those goals that you established early on, then you may want to rethink the way that you're doing this. And weigh the feedback that you have out there. Actually take a look at those surveys that people respond, come back with, or if there are questions that keep coming up, make sure that you have a way to address them so you can improve, with these iterations as you go forward. Refining the model, again, this is, as with everything you do with your business, the goal is to improve along, key metrics. So your revenue, your margin, your attendance, your approval, those types of things, saying, what can I do to get better at this? And the first time is, there's always going to be some bumps as with anything new that you do. But it's a very compelling way to get in front of people in a way when there's just not a lot of options available. Finally, growth. With time, you're going to find a model or models that work for you. Just because one of your peers is doing something doesn't mean it's going to be right for you. Make sure you're doing something that fits who you are as a business. Once you have those models that work, you can create a series, bundling them together. You can line up new partners or make, concerted efforts to expand your audience, both for the virtual events themselves and for your larger business. So you can use this as a hook to get people to sign up for recurring wines, deliveries, or to become regular customers at your restaurant. This is, both something that you can achieve in and of itself, but it's a tool to help you grow your business and make it more sustainable longer term. So these events are tools to help you reach your customers at a tough time and create deeper bonds. People are looking for ways to interact with their favorite food and beverage businesses, and they're becoming more and more comfortable with online formats. So even when things do go back to normal, these types of events are going to be sticking around. So why not have a couple in your back pocket, and why not be good at them? And hopefully this helped to get you there just a little bit faster. And with that, I will wrap things up and we can answer some Q&As.
Great, Chris, thank you. So if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask Chris directly, if you use the raise your hand, I can unmute you. Otherwise, you're welcome to type those into the question window. So we do have one question up here. If your event requires the participant to get a kit, what's the planning time window for making sure everyone is prepared?
That's a good question. I think it would depend on what that is. So for instance, I've attended wine classes where we've said we're going to taste 3 wines from a region. I think you could say have a plan for pickup or delivery no less than 3 days in advance. I think you'll see there's always going to be people scrambling, but giving yourself a cushion that you can get most of it done sufficiently in advance. If you're doing kits where people have to do some assembly at home, you want to give yourself plenty of room, whatever that is for your own internal purposes. You want to build these things around what the rest of your business looks like, but you have to give room to get most of the people out of the way with a comfortable time frame to allow for those stragglers, because there's always going to be stragglers. I know that's not a very concrete answer, but there's just so many permutations here that everything from I'm going to buy 3 coffees or 3 wines to I'm going to buy the ingredients to learn how to make this famous dessert that this restaurant does. They need to go and be a lot more proactive if there's multiple steps. If we're teaching bread baking, they need to have time to do the proofing and all of these things. So it's work backwards and then build in a good cushion for those little headaches that come up, because they will.
Thanks. Chris, you have done such a great job today that we don't have any additional questions. So I'm going to go ahead and close us out. We're right at the hour. So thank you all for attending today. Chris gave us some great information during the session. You'll be receiving an follow-up email after the session with a link with the recording as well as an evaluation. Please help us to improve our sessions by filling out that evaluation. If you'd like to do that now, you can find it in the chat window. More information about upcoming training sessions throughout the state can be found on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Also on our website, you can find the business recovery webpage, which was, excuse me, which was developed to help owners continue business operations during these challenging times. These detailed guidelines cover a broad range of critical considerations ranging from safety and workplace guidance to financial assessments and marketing and communication. While you can use them by themselves, they were designed to be ideally used in collaboration with the business consultant in your local small business development center. And we have offices located throughout the state to assist you. If you are not sure where your local office is, you can again find that on our website on the locations page. So again, thank you everyone for participating today.